Hello biology. Today is our final video of the remedial week because in your final class this week we're going to have a little Kahoot. Maybe you've done that in primary school to practice what we have learned over the weeks. So today I want to talk about something called carbon footprint. Maybe this is a phrase you've heard before. A carbon footprint is something everybody has, but everyone has a different size carbon footprint. So let's talk about carbon footprints and find out what affects the size of everybody's carbon footprint. Let's go. So before we talk about a carbon footprint, we need to talk about carbon, okay? So carbon is an element in the periodic table. This is the symbol for carbon. And here is what carbon looks like in real life. Notice here, carbon is quite black. It's a little bit shiny. And here, this is actually a diamond. We're going to look at those in a second because both of them are pure 100% carbon. So carbon is the sixth element of the periodic table, okay? One atom of carbon has 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons, okay? These are called subatomic particles, and these little particles make up atoms, okay? So they're even smaller than atoms. They're inside atoms, okay? Now, carbon can react with many other elements, specifically hydrogen and oxygen, okay? And atoms can be arranged differently to make graphite and diamond, okay? So although both of these are 100% carbon, the atoms, they're arranged differently. They're in a different shape, okay? They're in different positions, and that's what makes them look very, very different. So you've got graphite, which is in your pencil, and then diamond, which can be on a wedding ring. So what is our carbon footprint? So your carbon footprint is the amount of carbon compounds emitted due to the consumption of fossil fuels, okay? So that means everything you do every day, if it requires carbon to do that activity, that contributes to your carbon footprint because a weight of carbon needs to be burned to release energy, okay? So you've charged your laptop now. It's being powered by a battery. That's chemical energy. But to charge the battery, we needed electrical energy. That electrical energy would have come from burning carbon. Now, it's not just carbon dioxide, okay? So when we talk about emissions, we always talk about carbon dioxide, but there are other carbon gases. There's carbon monoxide and there's methane, okay? So there are actually three gases when we're talking about our carbon footprint. If it makes these three gases, that means it's contributing to the carbon footprint. So this is the average carbon footprint of an individual, okay? So the biggest one here is transport. 28% of their carbon emissions come from transport. Then 26% is from things that they buy. Heating and the home is 17%. Food is 14% of their carbon emissions. And any other energy sources can be 15%, okay? So we often talk about a carbon footprint and why we should reduce it. So why should we reduce our carbon footprint? So just to continue what we spoke about yesterday and last week, our carbon footprint contributes to greenhouse gases, and greenhouse gases contribute to global warming, okay? So everybody on the planet is contributing to global warming, and obviously we can all do things to reduce it. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we have done a lot on global warming. So what I really want to talk about today is how can we reduce our carbon footprint, okay? And the lucky thing is that everybody can do things which will help reduce their carbon footprint, okay? So first one, transport, okay? So the main issue with transport is cars, okay? They contribute to 20% of a country's carbon emissions, okay? So think about all of the emissions in the country, 20% are just coming from people driving on the streets, okay? So some alternatives are electric cars, public transport, and walking and bicycles. Now, electric cars are still quite expensive, so maybe it's quite difficult to ask someone to buy an electric car. But then there comes public transport. Now, you might say, but buses use carbon. Trains use carbon, of course, of course. Yeah, you're right. However, many people are sharing one form of public transport. So each person's carbon emission on public transport is reduced compared to a car where quite often one person is driving one car, so their carbon emission is much higher. Of course, walking and bicycles can be quite difficult, especially in this city. It's a very big city that we live in. But maybe you're just going to your friend's house. Do you really need to get a car there? If it's just a 20-minute walk, well, that can be, not only is it good for the planet, but it's healthy for you, bit of exercise. Next one is food. So the food industry has become heavily industrialized, okay? Growing food, rearing animals, which is means like raising animals from when they're young to when they're older and then taking them around the country or to other countries, farming, transport, and disposing food all cause carbon emissions, okay? So what can we do? One, we can buy food produced locally. Food that is imported from other countries, obviously, how does it get here? By trains, by boats. They come from big transport vehicles which are producing a lot of carbon. So we should buy food produced locally. Ideally, food which comes from the closest farmers possible, or at least food that comes from our own country. Another one, shop at markets instead of supermarkets. Normally, when you shop in a market, the traders are getting food locally, so from local farmers, local tradesmen. So there's less carbon emissions because there's less travel of the produce. Supermarkets, because they're much bigger businesses, they try to run things as cheaply as possible. So they'll often deliver food all around the country and to other countries, which produce a lot of carbon. And finally, a big one is buy and eat less meat. Eating meat is one of the biggest contributors to our carbon footprint. Okay, just think about it. Like we see here, animals are transported all around the country. You need big areas to bring up animals. They require a lot of food. They require a lot of care, and then you have to think about the all the different activities to transport them around the country and to package them. They are a big contributor to our carbon footprint. So something you could do is eat less meat. Now, I'm not saying you'd have to go vegan and completely avoid eating meat, but maybe you can just reduce it. Instead of eating meat 7 days a week, maybe you could eat meat 3 or 4 days. This is something that I've been trying to do for a couple of reasons. One, maybe to reduce my carbon footprint, but also maybe just to be a bit more healthier. Studies have shown that you don't really need that much meat. You need definitely some is a high source of protein. It's very good for you, but quite often we are eating too much meat than is actually necessary. So what I try to do is I try to only eat meat maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Heating and home. So heating and home, heating's not something that really exists here in Mexico. Generally, Mexico is quite a hot country, so there's no like heating systems in houses. Where I'm from in England, it gets very cold in the winter, so all houses have a radiator, which is like a metal plate on the wall which heats the house. Not very common here in Mexico. However, obviously there are still some things that we do in our home which contribute to our carbon footprint. Now, in my opinion, reducing our carbon footprint at home is the easiest thing to do because it's all about little actions. Turn off the light when you're not using it, buy energy saving light bulbs, unplug devices and chargers. This is a good one. Even if your mobile phone isn't charging, if your charger is attached or plugged into the wall, it's still consuming a bit of electricity, and that adds up. So we can unplug these devices. Take shorter showers, and read a book or play board games. Not everything has to be based around technology, does it? We don't have to watch TV. We don't have to play a video game. Equally fun things can be like playing a board game with the family. Maybe just instead of just having the television on for a show you're not really watching, turn it off for 30 minutes and read a book. All these little things can help. Finally, stuff we buy. So I'm sure you've seen these phrases in primary school quite a lot: reduce, reuse, recycle. And this is actually really important. It's not something that we can forget, and we start learning about it in primary school, but it's something we need for the rest of our lives, because producing materials contributes heavily to our carbon footprint. Um, so to reduce that, we need to use the same things again. Okay, a classic example is like a bottle of Coke. Maybe many of you know that you can drink the bottle of Coke, you can take it back to the shop, and then you can get a discounted Coke bottle again. These kind of little things are really, really important, because it's all about reducing production. And when we reduce production, we reduce carbon emissions. Okay, and we can do that by reusing things that are fine, that we can use again: clothes, glass, plastic, and then recycle. So when we use something and then we, instead of throwing it into the trash, try and do something different with it. So these are the questions that I'd like you to do today. Okay, we've got 4 here. The first ones, they're quite normal questions. They have an answer. You can just write a sentence on the Google Docs. But for question 4, I want you to make a little table, okay? And I want you to do 4 categories that we've just spoken about. And then for each one, I want you to give an idea of how we can reduce our carbon footprint. You can use the ones from this video, or try to use ones that are specific to you in your life. So maybe if it's transport, maybe you think, well, maybe I don't need to get into the car with my parents so often. Maybe we can walk to our family member's house next time. So here you can write, walk to my grandmother's house. That could be something here. Okay. Guys, that is the end of my video today. I will be online for the whole hour. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next class. Bye.